that doesn't look good. That that does not look good. Oh. Okay. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And maybe I should close a couple of things. Shit. Drop it in frames like it's hot. That's not good. Okay. Shit. Okay, maybe if I close the Discord and the Blizzard app. Okay, let's see. That's slightly better. See. Oh, no, we've dropped 70% of all frames. Oh. That's pretty rough. Okay. How about now? Ooh. Nope, that's still pretty terrible. I'm just gonna hope the sound works out on this shit. Reopen my, let's see, reopen the, Creators Studio. Fuck. Okay, give me a second. I'm gonna try to see what I can do about this. This is not good. It's not good at all. Shit. Can I look at it on my phone, maybe? Nope. Wow, this is already going absolutely terribly. Shit. Okay, where the fuck is my drawing pen? You gotta be fucking kidding me. I had that shit right here. It was right in front of my fucking face. Here. Okay. Okay. Open up Creator Studio. Now everything's taking forever to load. Close that. Go to live streaming. Ugh. Well, we've dropped over 9,000 frames. That's I'm just gonna hope the sound works on this thing. I think it did before, so I don't see any reason why it wouldn't now. I see somebody just kind of popped in for like one second. Okay. Well, let me. Okay, let's see. We'll get started in a moment. Actually, starting now. Okay. Okay. Wow. That's not gonna stop that's not gonna stop there from being absolutely nobody watching. But hello, assholes, motherfuckers, sons of bitches, and random ass students just studying for world history. I'm a random asshole, and today we're gonna be going over. We're gonna be going over. We're gonna start going over the entirety of modern history, of history as we know it. It's gonna be. It's gonna be a fun time. Not really, but one can dream. So we're gonna go over this as more of an overarching kind of thing. So it's really an overview of an overview, and you should be studying more, you lazy ass shit. But anyway, we're gonna kind of go over this as just going over a bunch of the main civs and philosophies and things that kind of happened during the time of everything up to and including the fall of the Romans. So, and hey, that either that one person returned or somebody else came on. Beats me. Welcome to the stream. Alright, let's begin. So, all the way at the beginning of time, clearly about 300 years ago, God created the world. I'm looking at the wrong thing. About thousands of years ago, around 8,000 BC is when we're going to start looking at history, which is kind of funny because from 8,000 to 400 BCE was the time period where there was no history whatsoever. This is the period of prehistory, right? There's no writing or records whatsoever, right? And so we go from 8,000 to 4,000, not 404,000 BCE, and then we really start getting into the civilizations. But there's some important things of note in. Wow, there's 2 people today. Holy shit. Normally people just come in like tomorrow morning and look at this. Anyway, I should start paying attention. There's some important things to note, as in the people that would eventually become actual humans. Starting with the Neanderthals and the Cro-Magnons, which were basically the 2 people leading up to the Paleolithic people. And that started up stuff like actually even more human characteristics than the Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons. Neanderthals being more meat-eating nomadic group hunters, with the Cro-Magnons being taller and smarter and having a wider tool variety. And it was assumed that they basically just merged together, and eventually a bunch of time and a bunch of shit going on. Who the fuck knows? It's prehistory. There's nothing written down. We get the Paleolithic era, and around 8,000 BC, along with stuff like language and fire, agriculture begins. We start planting our asses down and planting shit to eat, instead of going around hunting things with bows and arrows and on and on and on. So, and then we go into the Neolithic era. Neolithic people. I'm really going off of my first lecture notes. Wow, this be old. Anyway, but we go into the Neolithic, where there was more agriculture, there's more tools. It's basically humans are just evolving more. So really we go from Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons to the Paleolithic area, which gives us agriculture, which then leads us to the Neolithic era, time where there was more shit. We still had no idea how to write anything down at all whatsoever. But what the fuck? How are there 3 people on this stream? Okay. Ugh. It's confusing. Normally nobody watches this and I don't have to try so hard. But now people are watching as I'm going and I'm getting kind of nervous. But so now that we get into the Neolithic era, eventually, over time, we get smart enough to finally start writing shit down. Sure, it looks like shit, but it's something, right? We have begun something. That will lead to a lot of things, which was fine. And when we finally get writing around, say, the 4000 BCE, which is the end of prehistory because we can write now, start writing things. This eventually leads us to great civilizations. Okay? Okay. So let's go over a couple of those. Shit. So now when we start, that's not what I meant to do. But now we're going into. I meant to cut all that. Okay. And so now, there's also some tips popping up along here for the AP test. It's just kind of randomly in the notes that I've got. So, just a reminder, don't go too deep into answer choices. If it might technically be true, but it's not true for the majority of the world at the majority of the time, it's the wrong fucking answer. Don't overthink it. Pro tip of the day. So, whenever civilizations started growing from this time period of 4000 BCE to sometime, basically whenever more classical civilizations start, which is I don't have an exact date here, sorry, but just in this time, up to probably like 0 CE, let's call it, written laws became needed. It was felt that written laws were needed because, civilizations actually started growing. We went from like a couple of houses, or not even houses, a couple of huts with some plants, right, with a couple of plants, to this times a million, right? Right? So when we have a lot more people want to do stupid shit, and so we started writing down our laws so that we could say, hey, you're not supposed to do that. And they're like, oh, where's the fucking law? And then now you can shove the law in their face and tell them to go fuck themselves before shoving a sword up their ass for breaking the law. Right? And so most people obviously couldn't write. We're all still pretty much dumbasses. And so clerics did most of the writing. And jobs were separated into sections in the town. And this is a pretty, it's a part of towns that kind of pervades throughout history, right? I mean, you go to certain cities now, right? You've got the business district, the museum district, the art district, I don't fucking know, the grocery district. But, this separation of towns and cities and areas into places for specific people and occupations, it starts around here when people start getting together, and they already thought to separate people into different areas. And religion at this point is also really fucking important. Since we're pretty primitive, we can't explain jack shit. And so we're like, it's clearly the all-powerful God that we've never seen and never heard of, and he has the power to do everything. And he is clearly the cause of everything. Or maybe multiple gods, which is actually more likely at the time. So, and societies at this point were kind of divided into, I guess kind of what you would expect. You would got the upper class and the lower class. The upper class being patricians, and the lower class being plebeians, which is where the plebes things come from. And so you had, kind of kings and priests and warriors up here, and you had all the lower farmers and peasants and, basically fucking everybody here. And there might be some kind of really, really small, non-existent middle class of traders right here. Oh, hey, it's another pro tip from the past me. Uh, okay, well, that's how all short answers work past me. I didn't need to know that again, but just a quick reminder. Short answers. You restate the prompt with specific examples, and you answer it. And mostly, short questions asks about politics, religion, social stuff, and economics. Don't forget. Alright, so now let's actually start talking about some civilizations that did pop up. So we had, I wish I took better notes. Oh well, but we had people like the Mesopotamians, who occupied a large region around Iraq, right? Yes, Iraq, around the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, because most ancient civilizations were situated around bodies of water, and this is pretty important. Like, you're not gonna have anybody living in the fucking desert, right? These people were near water. They had figured out irrigation, which came later. And the Mesopotamians, and so we'll start up with the Sumerians, which created cuneiform. They were a group of city-states that kind of made led up to their downfall, but they were the ones that kind of first figured out irrigation and created the first kind of written language, being cuneiform, which is pretty cool. You can actually write shit down, right? And using this language, they wrote the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's an excellent read if you can understand it. You can SparkNote it though. I think it's an interesting read. But eventually, since there are a bunch of city-states in the ancient times, that didn't last very long. But what did pop up was the Babylonians, led by a man named Hammurabi. He took a large part of Mesopotamia and eliminated city-states and told people to worship him. But what's important about Hammurabi here is that he started up that crazy ass, a pretty sick code of law, right? So, let's see, Hammurabi started up that pretty nice code of law. So, laws were written down. But this was the first real, code of law. Like, you better follow this shit or you are dead. Eye for an eye, or, if you were a slave, an eye for a life, right? But this is where it all started. Okay. Whew. And also, just as a fun fact, Babylon was kind of like ancient times Vegas. There's a shit ton of partying and orgies and makeup and glass and pottery and all sorts of shit. It was crazy. Anyway, there's also the Assyrians. And what you need to remember about the Assyrians, if nothing else, is that they were a bunch of powerful assholes. Okay? They've got a powerful army, and they were basically just fucking terrorists, right? They fucked up everybody. Nobody liked them. Because, they're fucking assholes. Later, the Persians will beat them. So that's nice. And another civ to check out over here are the Phoenicians, which is, I know, it's in a completely different place, but they're pretty important because they made the first alphabet, which is pretty sick. They were also made up of city-states, but they were much less warlike, more traders. And so, in order to trade better, they created the first alphabet. Seems pretty logical to me. Their main city was Carthage, which would later take part in the Punic Wars with Rome and Sicily and all that crazy ass stuff that happens later. You can probably watch Crash Course or Extra Credits on that. If you never heard of Extra Credits, look it up. They have some nice history videos along with all the video game stuff they do. Anyway, they made glass first. They sailed pretty much everywhere. They had the best boats at this time, and they really stayed out of war. Although they were the only ones who did human sacrifice, so take that with a grain of salt. Moving on, let's talk about the Neo-Babylonians, because earlier the Assyrians kicked the Babylonians' ass because they're all partying and the Assyrians have a powerful army, and that doesn't go too well. So the guy who makes up the who leads the Neo-Babylonians is gonna be Nebuchadnezzar. Right? And so he basically just gets together and he just wants Babylon. That's all the Neo-Babylonians wanted. They didn't want the huge kingdom that old Babylon had. They just wanted Babylon, right? And eventually the Persians take over the entire area. And if you'll remember, this might have been the bane of your existence, the Hittites created iron weapons while the Hyksos introduced chariots. And you probably mix those up a lot. But I don't think it's too important, so I'll write it down just in case. Hittites, iron, weps, Hyksos, chariots. Alright. Now, we can talk about the Egyptians. Hooray! They're... Ooh. Okay. Let's cut that. And this. Screw that. Draw a pyramid. Although technically, the Old Kingdom was the only one that built pyramids. Anyway. So the Egyptian, the whole Egyptian civilization timeline was split up into three main sections. The Old Kingdom, where there were pyramids built, and it was fucking crazy. It was kind of the beginning. Then the Middle Kingdom, which was a time of, everything was fucking up. It was pretty turbulent. And then the New Kingdom was the height of the Pharaoh's power. So you have a lot of different things. And also resulting from this, obviously, was the Rosetta Stone, which allowed us to decipher hieroglyphics, which is, pretty fucking cool. And the Egyptians, unlike a lot of other people, actually had a central administration or bureaucracy. A lot of things are starting up in the very earliest days. And they figured out a lot of things, even though they seemingly did not have math. For example, they had a good, accurate calendar, and figured out how to do architecture without actually doing any math whatsoever. I don't know. It's pretty crazy. Okay, let's see. What else do we got to talk about? Let's look at this handy dandy review over here. We do have to talk about China at some point, but I want to do that all in one thing because I'm pretty lazy about that. So we'll stick to Egypt and Europe. Egypt, Europe, and the Romans for the moment. So let's see. Oh, there were these Indus River Valley civilizations that just disappeared. By the way, they seemed to be pretty advanced, and then they disappeared. Who knows? I don't know. Possibly somebody else can find out in the future. So let's, I guess, according to my notes, we're gonna move on to Europe. So, at the current, in Europe, all there really is a bunch of asshats called the Celts. Well, I mean, not asshats. Asshats are reserved for certain people whose names I can't pronounce or write. But the Celts were just a bunch of kinship groups. So you had this very terrible drawing of Europe. That looks like a fist? Jesus Christ. This is bad. But anyway, you'd have, let's just say that's Europe, and then you just have kinship groups all over the place, maybe groups of 1,000 each, and then they would just kind of live in those groups in subsistent farming. And the Celts basically just kind of and the Celts basically just flee. They all flee to Ireland once the Romans down here started taking over. It's a really bad picture. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I apologize. I did not want to paste that. I want to cut all of it. Thank you. But they were basically like the first kind of primitive place, and they had druids, and they had skulls of their enemies and their door frames, and on and on and on. So let's talk. Why not? Let's talk about the Greeks. Too much almost. Basically, what the Greeks did, I've really been going too much into detail about everybody, and really, we don't need to know all that much. So the Greeks basically had, those important cities of Athens and Sparta, and they had a Delian League, and they had a Peloponnesian War, and that's all fine and dandy, but what really was important here was how they started a whole lot of important shit. Athens started democracy, and Sparta started some weird-ass government that will never be copied again. But democracy was a pretty interesting thing, where instead of one ruler, you had everybody just kind of decide, and by everybody I mean all white landowning males, but, or rather, sorry, that's later on, but at this point it's all, what is it? Shit. All, fuck, I thought I remembered this. All, what is it? We're just gonna call it out white landowning males. And with power. And so, the Greeks were really just a league of city-states. So, where's my Greek notes? Weird. Oh yeah, and so there were a couple of philosophers that are pretty important that showed up during this time period. And there's also some pretty interesting people as well. So we've got people like Pericles, who basically was the height of Athens' power. You had people like Plato and Socrates, and not in that order, it would be Socrates first. People interrupting. So you had Socrates first with and Plato, which really started up some interesting philosophical arguments, mainly that we would actually use logic and reasoning and questioning to, figure out shit, instead of just kind of saying, clearly the gods do everything and there's nothing we can possibly do about anything except pray and do these weird-ass rituals. So, and then you also got this guy named Aristotle, which created a bunch of important shit. He basically, oh, wait a second. Okay, so he thought that everything should be approached by that good old scientific method. Deductive reasoning, all that good shit. And so I guess I can write this down. And he would eventually go on to mentor Alex the Great. And Aristotle at this point was thought to be like the guy who knew everything, the ultimate genius, clearly. And so, let me see. Why? Okay, I don't have anything on Alexander the Great, sadly enough. Although I can go over a couple of the things he did. Sorry, go Wikipedia that shit. But mainly Alexander the Great. What he did was that he conquered the Greeks, the Persians, the Egyptians, and who else? See, it conquered Greeks, Romans, Egyptians. Wait, not Romans. Gotta be fucking kidding. No, just the Greeks, the Egyptians, and the Persians. And this accomplished a very important thing of cultural diffusion, right? Because now you got a huge fucking empire. So, and everybody's communicating with each other. So you got a lot of ideas traded around, a lot of communication being made, a lot of shit's going on, right? And sadly, I don't have any more notes on Alexander. Past me was such a lazy ass fuck. But eventually, obviously, do I not have? I thought I had notes on Alexander the Great. No, I really don't. This is very depressing. Okay, wow. I think he dies of poison or some shit. Point is, after he dies, the Romans take over, and whoo dang, the Romans pretty fucking cool. Let's go over that shit. So basically, what happened with the Romans was that the Romans were basically looked at the Greeks and went like, we're gonna take that shit and we're gonna make it better because we are the fucking best. Romans were the win. And so, let's see. They invented and created. They did a couple of things. Like they created cisterns to pump water. They made good bridges, aqueducts. They made roads. So let's see. A couple of things that made the Romans so fucking huge. And if you'll remember, we did do a database, or not a long essay question an LEQ while back, for those at Cinco Ranch High School. But we did do an LEQ about the rise of imperial classical civilizations, which would basically be the Romans, and also the Han Dynasty, but the Romans. So, what they had a lot of things. At the beginning, they had strong leaders, shit like, or rather, at their height, they had strong leaders, like Julius Caesar, and Augustus Octavian, and Marcus Aurelius, and all sorts of cool shit. They had a strong military. It was disciplined. It would kill shit. It would conquer shit. They had roads fucking everywhere, right? They could get anywhere at any time, whenever the fuck they wanted to. And they had, and they even stole democracy from Athens, right? They had their own senates, and that is how they really, oh shit, that's how they really came to power. And after the Punic Wars, they come to control the Mediterranean as well. They control the Med. Okay? Whew. Let me see. We're just gonna skip over. I have a bunch of useless notes about uh, what all the leaders did. To be honest, you just need to know just overall Romans. They built a lot of things. They built walls. They made a huge army. You know, it was pretty cool. Uh, Also, Christianity happened to pop up during. Okay, that's the end. Okay. Anyway, so Christianity that happens to pop up during the Roman time. Hooray! And it the fuck. And eventually, uh, the Romans adopt Christianity. Catholic Church becomes huge, and for all the reasons that the Romans became a huge empire, the exact opposite of them was the cause of their decline. Oh, and on the reasons there would be also economic economic dominance. You know, having a huge fucking landmass also allows you to trade with a lot of people. Especially after you control the Mediterranean, they controlled a lot of trade routes as well. But eventually they got really fucking stupid leaders, like they got like Caligula, who had a lot of sex orgies and his horse as a second in command. They had a weak army. If you remember one of our first database questions, you'll remember that towards the end, the Romans started becoming really stupid, like not wearing armor, not being disciplined. Their government became corrupt, and barbarian attacks eventually wore down Rome's empire back down to Rome. And they kind of got fucked over. And everybody moved on over to Constantinople, which became the Byzantine Empire. And that'll fall later. Don't worry. It's just going to happen. But that is past 1450, which is actually not where. Wow, I'm actually going to. I think I'm going past what I planned on. Who fucking cares? There's one person that's been here the whole time. Basically, wow. Cool, I guess. I wonder. Okay. Wonder who that person is. But now, we're done with the Romans. They've died. Rip the Romans. You can probably watch somebody else's WAP project later to find out more about the Romans. But now, we can move on to more Asian things, like China. Oh, China. We're gonna run through this fast as hell. So basically what happened is, you've got the Shia dynasty, which some people don't even consider a dynasty, which moves on to the Shang dynasty. Okay, and the Shang dynasty is what starts up the creation of like Chinese culture and all sorts of other shit, and it's pretty important. It's pretty cool, I guess. So it led to. So the Shang dynasty gave China writing and the calendar and bronze, all sorts of cool shit, until they were overthrown and replaced by the Zhou dynasty, which, looking back at that internet tab that I have open here about the Zhou dynasty, which I'm going to say most importantly, introduced all the philosophies, all the ones that you have trouble remembering, right? Taoism, legalism, and Confucianism have their starts here. Okie dokie. Alright. Then, you've got the Warring States period. Yeah. No, then you have basically the Warring States period. And then the Qin dynasty follows the Zhou dynasty. Qin dynasty. Although it was very short, it was pretty important. And it did stuff like contributing to China's name, as the Romanized version of Qin was like Chin, and then from there you get China. And basically, the Qin went on a huge conquest for its very, very short reign and unified China first. Okay? Unified China first. And then after the Qin dynasty, you might want to take a picture of that shit. That's gonna be... Xia dynasty was the first and pretty useless. Shang dynasty was kind of really the first with writing in bronze and shit. The Zhou dynasty was the one with all the confusing philosophies. And the Qin dynasty was very short, but it unified China. Cool? Cool. Moving on. Then you finally get to the Han dynasty. The Han dynasty being like the first golden age. The first golden age of China. Whew, fucking boy. What a god. What a god. So the Han dynasty did a whole lot of important shit. It lasted for over 4 fucking centuries. Okay? And it did a lot of shit that I can't fucking remember right now. So we're gonna we're gonna go over here on this internet right over here. Man, I'm really fucking terrible at this. Let's see. Oh yeah. So the Han dynasty runs on a kind of system of feudalism, and they also are the ones that started the Silk Road, and also had that that merit system where one could go up in the ranks by being an actual just powerful, good, cool person, as opposed to having born into a place, right? Let's see. Anything else I'm missing? Yeah. They also kind of perfected bureaucracy. And also Buddhism comes in from India. That happened. I'm gonna not write that down. I'm just kind of looking at my notes again, so I'm really bad at this. Okay. Well, the Han Dynasty was kind of like any other imperial empire, as in it had a strong military for a time, it had a strong government for a time, and it had a good economy for a time. Eventually, it fell to barbarians, inflation, and high taxes. And we went back into a warring states period. These reasons, by the way, also happen to be how Rome basically falls. Barbarians and money. That's just a killer for a lot of people, man. Yeah. Really takes them out. See, anybody else I'm missing here? We covered the Chinese. We covered Europe, which is basically just the Celts and also the Romans. The Byzantine Empire and Islam is much later. So, is there anything else I'm missing? Oh yeah, we forgot India. India was a place, and it had stuff going on during the time of classical civilizations. So, yeah, even at this point, So here at this point, India basically starts up Hinduism, and you should know by now that Hinduism had this huge caste system, or varnas, okay? So they had the workers in the lowest, farmers and merchants in the middle class, warriors pretty high, and priests at the very top, or the Brahmins. And so, an interesting note, if you see a picture from around classical civilizations and like what civ this be from, if it's got big boobs in the picture, it's probably from India, because they didn't really care about that at all. So, they, unlike the Chinese, valued merchants very highly. Okay, they valued merchants. While the Chinese were pretty isolationist, they fucking were really racist. They placed merchants at the lowest class of society. India here valued them the highest. Let's see. Anything else here? There were two religions that split off from Hinduism, mainly Buddhism and Jainism. And Jainism. Buddhism was basically following along a couple of key principles. It was basically that you had to follow a certain path of eliminating desire, and then you can be in nirvana. And Jainism was an extreme form of asceticism, where they were basically non-violent, holy, nude, and they didn't do jack shit. And on the topic of empires, the Mauryans and the Guptas were the ones that really created India, right? The Mauryans started the process, and Guptas kind of finished it. Guptas were the high point of Indian culture at this time. And I think we're done. Hey. Okay. Thank you for watching, if anybody indeed watches this. I hope you didn't. I hope you can take some information from this and be reminded that you've got a lot of shit to go back over. And a lot of things to look up on the internet if you didn't take good notes, like I did. Rip. Thank you to the one person who has stuck to this stream the entire time. It's pretty nice of you, I suppose. And, oh, one more thing. We can definitely go over the differences between Confucianism, legalism, and Taoism. Just going a quick overview. I'll make a short video about this over the weekend, but we can go over a little bit of it now. So Confucianism, right? Confucianism was more of a story of that. It was more of, wow, okay, it's very late and I just forgot. This is bad. Okay. Okay. So basically, what Confucianism proposed was benevolent rulers and frugal rulers, and that moral superiority came not from blood, but from actual moral superiority, right? You were better because of who you were, and we were all equal men, not, and that no man was superior. And this was some revolutionary shit, right? Like, somebody was always ruling. How can no man be superior? That's some crazy ass shit. Taoism, if I can look back in my notes and find it, but Taoism was more of a yin-yang kind of. This is where the yin-yang kind of comes from. It's also called Taoism. Taoism slash Taoism was more of the yin and yang kind of thing. That's really bad. That's better. And it focused more on harmony and balance, and promoted a lot of promoted rationalism within China, and promoted balance in yourself. Okay. I really you should probably look up more about it. I don't have enough here. However, I do have pretty much what legalism was. Legalism is the exact opposite of the rest of that. It said that it was basically teaching that man was an asshole. We're assholes. We're assholes, okay? And we had to curb those violent tendencies with the law. Okay? And this was promoted a lot during the Sui Dynasty. So, follow the law. Okay? And in direct contradiction to that man was born good. So Confucianism, no man superior, the ruler should be benevolent and kind. Taoism, you should have harmony and balance with yourself, be smart about things and use rational logic, should get along with other people, and again, be more of a benevolent ruler, while legalism was be a fucking asshole and lay down the law. And I'm pretty sure that's gonna be the stream. Thank you to that one person that stayed here for like 45 minutes. And thank you to everybody who's going to eventually watch this, because there's some people who will. And I hope this will inspire you to crack out your notebook, and I'm gonna hope you took much better notes than I did. And I hope to God that you go over this before that AP exam, May 11th for 2017. Peace out, motherfuckers.